All right. Theoretically starting, maybe. Let's see. Yes. Mute myself, edit video. Let's get in here. Live. Monetization on, please. I'd like to earn my whole 30 cents from this. Oh, no. Oops, wrong one. Control room. That's the one we want. Yes, I am, in fact, still alive. It's just been not really conductive to streaming recently. As for those who still don't know, yes, I'm from and would love to still be in Fairbanks, Alaska, but ever since 2020 happened, I've been stranded down in the lower regular US, living with my parents. And it there are no seasons down here like there are back up home. There's just unbearable heat. And oops, that's not the link I wanted. And during the summertime, the heat is like unnatural. And the AC unit in my room in their house can only actually keep my room under 80 degrees as long as the outside temperature is below like 95 degrees or so. And for the last several weeks, aka the portion that you have seen me absent from streaming, the outside temperature has been above 95 degrees every day. So haven't really been able to stream because of lack of comfort. Hello, 4, no 3. Oh yeah, I should probably text Josh. Although, no, wait, he's not working anymore. I forgot. He's officially out of the Air Force now, I think. Where is he? There he is. Uh, on briefly. There we go. He's probably asleep, but all right. 658 gigawatts of demand was already on the grid by 2 p.m. Eastern. It's now 3:30 p.m. Eastern. This is the live hourly updating U.S. Grid demand load tracker, which I did give you guys the link to in one of the channel posts, because I'm going to actually start giving you guys like the links to various things I use to track stuff, so that you don't feel like I'm holding you information hostage to like remain dependent on me for stuff. The US and the UK are the only ones that actually have a like live hourly grid tracker. All the other countries just release like monthly average demand level data. If the load was up to 658 already by only 2, then potentially that's probably going to end up over 700 before the day is over, or before the peak period of the day is over. Temperature map usually get, yeah, that would do it. Looking at the temperature map, I think the only places missing are the northern 2/3 of California and the Northwest. If those were in red slash pink as well, then that would probably be enough, because that's usually it's when it's all like 80s and above is when the electricity demand levels tend to get broken. But even during this month, which has been the hottest month in recorded history, the U.S. has constantly had spots like the Northwest right now, and some portions of like Pennsylvania and New York where it hasn't been as hot. So the U.S. has avoided breaking its demand record. The most recent one of which was set last year during the summer at 743 gigawatts of active load on the grid. but everybody else has been breaking their records, like Panama and Greece and who am I forgetting? India. China so far has avoided breaking their record from last year. Last year they got up to, I think, like almost 1.3 terawatts of demand. But like the highest they've got up to this year so far on one particular day was only, I think, 1 point or just below 1.2. So China's managed to avoid breaking theirs. 5 present, 2 talkers. Who do we have? Anything from Josh? Are you alive, Josh? Nope. Shut up, Microsoft. I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. But yeah, so in case you guys missed it, and or if you didn't know about the thing itself, on any channel, there's these different tabs. Live is where you find the past recordings of past live streams. They separated those out from videos now, and there's this thing here, the community tab, which is where you find these more like blog-like posts where I'll constantly like post stuff like this with things that are probably not enough for me to like make an actual video out of. And in one of these, I think it was this one, yeah, this one, the third one down here, I put the links to the US and UK's live grid demand load trackers, so you can add those to your bookmarks or whatever. Because, like I said, I'm going to start giving you guys the links and sources and stuff, so that I'm not like holding you information hostage or anything. But every few days, at least I try, so that I can pretend that I'm still like providing content. Every few days, I post one of these with like some updates and stuff. Uh, what else was I looking? Oh yeah, well, actually, yeah. Let's check the UK while we're at it. UK should be, yeah, starting to go down now because it's 8:30 p.m. there. So 28 and a half. Their highest point today was only 31.4. Yeah, the UK pretends that it's an industrialized country, but sorry to let you guys know over there, you're kind of not really in the big leagues anymore. And we'll check if the the lead and zinc data has not updated yet. So that's still on production through April. The copper data did update, and that's in. Oh wait, what am I doing? Hold on. It was on instant access right there. There we go. The copper data did update yesterday. So through the end of May this year, so far, production from copper mines has totaled 8.92 million tons versus by this time last year it was 8.77. And then, so that's primary. Secondary is recycled copper. So then the world refined production, you have total supply versus the total usage. So last year, total usage was above total supply, so there was a deficit. This year, it's below total supply, so there's a net surplus. However, the stocks, the total supply, excess supply available is still going down because the usage is for like physical usage. That stuff, at least as far as I'm aware, doesn't include like copper being taken away for like investment holdings in banks. And also, factories and stuff tend to order like their bulk shipments like months ahead of time before when they expect to use them. So before like the actual consumption jumps up in, say, if it was going to in a few months, the stocks will drop down because the factories are, ordering the stuff ahead of time. So at the start of the year, it was just above 1.5 million excess tons in storage in like storage warehouses across the world. Now it's down to 1.34. The lowest I saw it get down to was a couple of years ago. It got down to like 1.1. And as of present, yeah, still close to four, but not quite. $3.90 or so. 7 versus 5. Okay, well, I don't I don't pay attention to my chat like completely live, so I have no idea what the Race to Oblivion comment is specifically referring to. Oil has actually started to react properly to recent changes now. It's up from the mid 70s to now almost 80, which it should have done from the start once the extra Saudi supercuts were implemented on their part. But it only reacted from 68 up to 76 on that part. The jump up towards 79 or 80 now is on the back of seeing that China's oil demands returned to and exceeded 17 million barrels a day in the most recent data release. So it's still not really properly reacting, but like I said in that community post, the election in Libya failed. They couldn't agree on the terms of it. The two different sides that are vying for control of the country, and some of the eastern forces have now been moving into positions closer to like key western areas. So it looks like the civil war is about to restart in Libya. And if that happens, then Libya's oil production, which is around 1.2 million barrels a day, will drop off the face of the earth again for probably at least a few months. The abrupt absence of that would send oil prices in their current sluggish behavior probably just up to uh, the lower 90s. If they're more properly reactive, then it would go closer to 100. If if everything like fully restarts. Oh yeah, wheat has been jumping up now because Russia decided to start using cruise missiles to attack grain silos and is saying they're going to sink any bulk carriers carrying grain and wheat out of Ukraine, which is kind of uh, interesting since most of the Ukrainian grain is going to desperate African nations, most of whom, out of hatred of the West, claim to be Russia's ally. So Russia's kind of really shooting themselves in the head by doing this because they're not spiting the West by doing that. They're spiting their own supposed allies, but uh, they're going to do what they're going to do, I guess. And I mean, they only have somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 cruise missiles left, so you got to waste them on something. Why target? Why target? Ukraine's military hardware when you could just bomb grain silos and museums in Odessa? So on the back of that, grain has shot up from about 650 up to like 750, 760. Nowhere near the heights that it got to last year at the initial outbreak of the war, which got up to like 1,200. And this isn't dollars; this is cents per bushel. A bushel is only like I think 40 pounds. I'm not sure. I think it's like 40 pounds of grain. So it's not like a truckload or anything. It's like a big bag, like a big bag because big bags or, burlap sacks is how they used to measure it, back in the old days. So just like how in the initial days in like the 1800s, when oil was only being used for like lubrication and heating lamps, it was literally shipped in barrels. So that's why barrels became the go-to measurement, and we've stuck with it ever since. So, back in the day, grain was literally shipped in like, big sacks. So, and I guess the amount that goes into a sack is a bushel, although you'll also see it like a bushel referred to as a specific amount baled up or rolled up in terms of wheat itself before it's ground into grain. But it's like 40 pounds or something. So if it was like $760 for only like a single bag of grain, that would be pretty ludicrous actually, and no one would be able to afford to eat ever. So it's actually cents. So $7.62 per bushel. Got up to about $12. Whereas last time it did that was in the financial crisis. Although I think adjusted for inflation, that would be more like $18 technically. And I don't know what was happening in the 90s. I think that was just a really bad harvest worldwide or something. Lollapalooza. You guys are like making meme references that I don't get or something. Uh, no, China doesn't do Ukrainian grain. Uh, Almost all of Ukraine's grain uh, primarily goes to Middle Eastern and African nations like Lebanon and Syria, who buy their grain, and then the rest of Ukraine's grain goes to the World Food Program, and then gets given for free to countries that can't afford it and would otherwise starve if they didn't get it, like uh, Somalia, Sudan, Eritrea, Yemen, most recently as well. Uh, I think Central African Republic. Let's open the wide list. Hold on, let me chug some water. All right, what do we got here? What was I going to look at? Oh yeah, lithium. It's been mostly staying the same ever since it jumped up a bit. Uh, yeah, copper still hanging out there. Silver started to correct itself again, but then it stopped. Got up to about $25 an ounce and hasn't really moved since then, even though it should. But if you guys, you might have seen, if you read the community posts I put on the channel, silver demand might suddenly start shooting up even higher than it already is because of our obsession with solar panels. But it might be shooting up even higher because Mexico has decided that to try to end their drought in several regions, they're going to try cloud seeding, which I can't remember whether it's silver iodide or silver nitrate, but it's a silver compound that you fly in a big like tanker plane above the clouds and you just dump hundreds of tons of it into the clouds, and it basically forces them to rain out their water. But so on top of the silver supply deficit we're already dealing with, uh, where we're now going to have potentially countries start, dumping hundreds of tons of silver out across the sky that will never get back in the form of like silver iodide or silver nitrate compounds. So this is gonna get interesting. What was I? Oh yeah, here. I don't have all of them on hand, but I do have the various production graphs. So here's global silver production peaked back in 2015 or so and had an extra dip in 2020 because of some countries shutting down mines and stuff. Even though mine workers are like isolated in the cabs of giant vehicles and are hundreds of meters away from each other. Some countries, looking at you, Australia, still shut down mines because of COVID, but it has rebounded fairly nicely since then. However, now with issues that are starting to arise in Russia with their mining output because of their lack of access to Western stuff that they depend on, and also various issues elsewhere, like Colombia and Peru, and now Chile as well, all for different reasons, mind you. But that's going to not be able to push up higher than that again. And the demand was already getting out of control. Where is it? Silver. There it is. Yeah, so, what is it? Yeah, photovoltaics. So solar panels. This is millions of ounces per year. You can see it going up, level off kind of up until post 2020, then it starts climbing again and dumping up to 161 million ounces, likely being uh, likely being used to construct additional solar panels this year. So that was already something that's going to be getting out of control and that we're not going to be able to maintain. But now we're potentially going to have countries also adding on like hundreds of additional tons of consumption at a time to dump across the sky to try to force it to rain. Nothing new. Probably check the oil and gas journal. Have anything else? Washington wants to impose restrictions on the Gulf of Mexico because, of course, has been stuff off of Indonesia. No, not in particular. I think I'm forgetting. What else was I going to open up here? Oh, yeah, I forgot. Well, I should get the image up for you guys as well, since that will be helpful. Hold on. Get out of here, out of here. Uh, R for rhenium. Where is it? It's before S. That's where it is. I should remember the alphabet. Um, okay. It's not showing up, but I literally just got it yesterday. What is going on? Wait, no. Should be in quick access. Is it quick access? Oh no, hafnium. Hafnium's what it was, not rhenium. So, yeah, hafnium prices have been ballooning up way past any of their previous records. and are approaching $5,000 per kilogram. Their most recent update was to 4,914. Hafnium is not, it's one of these strategic metals, which is what rare earths are grouped in. It's not technically a rare earth metal. However, it is a rare metal that is found on Earth. So, I mean, you could, classify it that way. But hafnium, especially nowadays, is quite critical to modern computer processors, as the more processing you're doing in a single processor, as more processors, modern processors, get more and more powerful, the more heat that generates, and a hafnium, I think it's hafnium tetrachloride, a special hafnium chloride coating helps regulate the heat. It's really the only thing that works. And when it comes to this case, like along with the use of beryllium for stabilizer alloys in cruise missiles and in airplanes, like I've said before, it's not something that can be like replaced. It's not something that was chosen that can be like substituted with something else. It's like the thing that works. You know, they you don't go out of your way to pick the most expensive thing. So it's the only real thing that works for the processor stuff, and that demand has been going up as we've gone into more and more modern times with these better improved processors really started picking up over the 2010s. Its primary its primary source of consumption is still in, you see that super alloys there, uh, nickel nickel super alloys, which are primarily their primary usage is in aircraft engines. Their second primary usage for nickel superalloys is in power plant turbines, but the bulk like material demand for them is for aircraft engines, uh, weather planes, helicopters, or anything, and also for rocket engines, for obviously rockets, but also for something that's been getting expended quite a bit recently because of specific events. Things like cruise missiles and anti-air system missiles and air defense missiles. So that does have an effect, although still regular aircraft engine manufacturing is still the absolute bulk source of the demand. And aircraft production has actually gone back up, rebounding from the 2020 COVID lows, especially with like mega multi-hundred aircraft orders now coming out of airlines from India. And this is on the back of, I don't think I have the one for, I don't think I have the one for zirconium. No, only zinc. But hafnium is, hafnium is only gotten out of the process of refining zirconium. It's basically a byproduct. And zirconium production has been kind of flat. It's basically been on a plateau for the last some odd years or so. And the primary Google, the primary producers of which are Australia and South Africa. And while Australia is fine, and if need be, they can up the output, South Africa has been having, issues that we talk about so frequently. So they've been having their whole power grid collapse issues, and even they're starting to have rail network issues now, which kind of affects the transport and delivery of things, including, large tanks of diesel fuel that the mines use, and that their backup generators at the mines use for when the power grid fails and they need to continue powering themselves. So zirconium output from South Africa has gotten a bit wobbly, and the primary refiners of hafnium, where the stuff at the zirconium actually gets sent and the hafnium gets separated out, are China, Spain, and France. And if you haven't been paying attention, France has been having some internal social issues for the last month or two. So that's been starting to cause like uh, business, we'll just say business disruptions inside of France. So there are various things stacking against hafnium access supply wise from various different angles. And that has now sent it rocketing up towards $4,914 per kilogram. And whether it continues going up, we'll have to wait and see. It probably will still for some time. They'll have to shoulder off a lot of the refining to Spain and China away from France. And to make up for South Africa's issues, Australia is going to have to really pick up the tab on zirconium mining. All right, was that it? I think that was it for that. I am forgetting something, as I always am, but I don't remember what it was I forgot. Oh, yeah. Funny news. So when the call finally came down for their to give up their actual numbers, the China was forced to admit that they were still actually lying. And originally, Z bragged that their economy had grown from 17.7 up to 18.6 trillion. Then, after the first quarter of this year, during 2022, I mean, then after the first quarter of this year, they begrudgingly admitted that it only grew from 17.7 up to 18.2. And when the final call came in to cough up the data already, they gave up the data. And turns out it didn't even do that. China only went from 17.7 up to a flat 18 last year. So, stacks of compounded lies. And this is not really going to get that much better, especially since their internal spending is going to be collapsing as their number of active workers earning money to then spend on stuff is going to keep diving because of their demographic contraction that's now happening. So, over the course of 2022, their workforce shed 13 million workers. This year, I would expect probably the best average bet would be another 11 are shaved off, although it could be higher and small chance it could be lower. So I would expect roughly a drop from 733 down to 722 million active workers. So this is only going to get worse for them, compounded with the fact that like every business and manufacturer ever is now racing out of China because China just got too erratic with its internal behavior during the COVID years, and also they've everyone's kind of finally acknowledged what's coming with the whole Taiwan China situation. And some of the risk items have been removed from the list. So like there's a list uh, of risk items, things that are either made in Taiwan almost exclusively or are made in China. heavily or almost exclusively. However, that list has been shrinking as everyone's been rushing out of China. Oh, there's Josh. This was always going to be a short stream, so it's probably not going to be on for much longer. But the China Taiwan risk item list is continuing to shrink. Uh, like pots and pans and cookware and stuff used to be on it. However, now a lot of that stuff has shifted production and is now pretty like evenly distributed. A lot's now made in India, some's made in Brazil, some's made in Vietnam, some's made in the US. So that stuff is mostly safe. Toys for the most part and plastic plastic doodads and whatever, almost all of that is still made in China. So within a few weeks or a month or two after the invasion starts, either most likely next year or 2025, within like a few weeks or a month of that, you will abruptly see the toy aisles in whatever store you go into just empty out and not really restock anytime soon. And I mean everything from uh, like toy cars to action figures, stuffed animals, balls, sportswear, everything. Thankfully, most of the plastic bag production has left China. Most of it has been brought back to either to the U.S. or has been moved down to Thailand. Uh, not cookware. What am I thinking of? Cutlery, so forks and spoons and knives. A huge chunk of that is still made in China. I think it's like 70% in China, 20% in the US, and 10% in Portugal. So that is going to be constrained when it starts, unless there's a big shift in production that I'm not aware of taking place at the moment. What else? Fridge water filters. If you have like the water dispenser thing in the door of your fridge where you put the cup or the water bottle under it and it fills it up with water, the filters for those are made in Taiwan, so that will be an issue. Uh, what else? What else am I thinking of? Most of it's China stuff primarily. uh, s- Steel is shifting quickly. Like China, up to a few years ago, China made like half of the world's steel, and thankfully, India has been really quickly picking up the tab on that, and also uh, all of the steel mills in like the Eastern European countries that are only running at 10 or 20% capacity can easily just dial that back up if need be. But what else am I thinking of? What else am I thinking of? What else is on the list? Uh, Pet waste bags, usually for picking up dog crap outside or scooping your cat's stuff out of the litter box into. Those are still pretty exclusively made in China. Hopefully, they'll be moving those. The company that makes the different companies that make those, at least, will be moving that down to Thailand, where all of the other like plastic manufacturing companies have been moving their stuff. But a lot of most of that is still made in China. All right, what else is on that list? Uh, China, China doesn't, China doesn't actually like have a lot in that category anymore. It moved a lot of some stuff did move into China initially, but then they were having too many quality issues. So then the automakers like moved out and went back down to Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. BYD. what about them? I I don't particularly I don't particularly care about them. I mean, I'm not, for one, I don't own a car, have never owned a car, and never will own a car. My driver's license expired like a decade ago, anyways. Uh, Primarily because back up home in Fairbanks, we have, public transit, something that in most of America is unheard of. But I wouldn't be waiting in a line to buy a Chinese automaker's car, anyways. Most of the cars made in China now are for the Chinese market, and those that aren't are for the Southeast Asian market. However, that's been shifting, like I said, towards Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And I'm trying to, what else was on the big risk list, or is still on the big risk list? That is, oh yeah, power cords, power cords, phone chargers, laptop chargers, extension cords, surge protectors. Unfortunately, at least as of the moment, a huge chunk of those are still made in China. Although they are shifting that down to Thailand as well. As the last time I was looking at them in the store, I've started to see made in Thailand tags popping up on them. Only on like 10 to 15% of them for the moment, unfortunately. But it is starting to make its way down there out of China as well. And the risk time frame, like if you guys if you guys were wanting to get stuff before like before it potentially starts each year, that is uh the the primary risk time is during the fall from like late August through late November, as that is the time frame during which the waters of the Taiwan Strait are the calmest. So the journey for ships crossing the strait would only be about 6 hours, as opposed to during summer or winter, it would be about 8 or 9 hours. And during spring, when the waters are the roughest, it would be almost a 12-hour trip. And you kind of want the shortest trip possible when you're trying to make an amphibious assault. So fall of each year is when like the risk period is. So if you like intend each year to get possible things, if you were already about to have to buy them, like I'm not saying to go out and like just randomly arbitrarily buy them, but if you were already going to get new something or another that is on the risk item list, then the time to do it before each year would be before fall starts. But by fall, like I said, I mean late August to late November, as the calm period for the waters of the Taiwan Strait. It doesn't, like any other waters, it doesn't like fit itself into your like calendar definition of fall. It falls into a time frame that is mostly within your calendar definition of fall or autumn. For this year, like I said, it's still not likely, but it is much more likely than last year. This year, I would say one. I would still say it's only a 20, maybe 25% chance that they're going to do it this year, but still not likely next year, 2024. Next year is the first year where we tip over into the uh, it's very likely it's happening time frame. Next year tips over the 50% likelihood towards like 60%, I would call it. 2025 is like the closing window. It really jumps up to like if they want to do it and have a real chance of succeeding, 2025 is like the closing of the window where they would have to go for it. So it could still happen this year by all means, but I still consider it not likely for this year. They still have not finished their second legitimate amphibious assault vessel fleet yet. In theory, that will be finished the construction and fitting out of that will be finished at the end of this year, which is part of what tips next year into the much more likely category. And also, as we keep seeing in satellite imagery, they are still outfitting more and more civilian car shipment ferries to function as large semi-amphibious transport craft. I don't think there's anything else particularly on the list, at least off the top of my head. Uh, no, not really. And for even for the Taiwan stuff itself, like I said, in the early 2010s, it was still like 90% of computer processors were made in Taiwan. Now, thankfully, that is down to only around 60 to 65%. And if it doesn't happen this year, which it shouldn't, then by the end of summer next year, when the window of next year opens, that will be down to like 50 to 55%, as that has been moving elsewhere. Like stuff is uh, production has been started up in the U.S. and additional production in the U.S. will be started up as well, along with furthering production in Malaysia, Singapore, who was already really good at it, South Korea and Japan picking up the tab on production of the stuff, and they're two of the primary ones who actually do the like molecular level engineering and designing of the processors themselves. So like even if China were to seize Taiwan and get TSMC, they wouldn't actually get that they would get the foundries, but they wouldn't like get the designs really because that the designing and engineering is done by teams at firms in South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. Taiwan has just primarily been the one who makes it. However, like I said, they're down to like 60% now, and then other ones are also some of it's also been moved to Germany. Some of it by the end of summer next year will be moved to a fabrication plant in Poland and some has been moved to Turkey. Unfortunately, that's gonna bite in a little bit though. But for the moment, that's still an okay move. Uh, oh yeah, wait, that's what I forgot. Half of iPhone production is still in China. Half has been moved to India, but half is still in China as of this moment at least. So if you are a hipster who like has to constantly have the newest iPhone model. You are once this starts and things blow back in China's face and everything, and no one wants to like ship stuff through a war zone. You are going to have to deal with a like only half as available iPhone supply for quite a prolonged period of time. So you will be screwed in that regard. Oh, and I'm not sure. I'm not positive, but I do think a big portion of jewelry is made in China, both fake jewelry and real jewelry. So, uh, if you're into jewelry for some reason, then you're also going to see a sudden abrupt deficit in that. on top of the complete disappearance of everything from the toy aisle in stores. Oh, we wouldn't have to. Taiwan, if Taiwan was at on the last on like their last legs and was like confident that they were going to lose, and they were going to fall, they themselves, out of spite to China, would just destroy the factories on their own. We wouldn't even need to do that. They would do it themselves. Like I promise you, if they went down, they would go down sticking up a middle finger. But the whole thing for China is not likely to succeed anyways, because just an amphibious crossing invasion is it's just not something you really pull off. Like we, the Allies, succeeded at Normandy in World War II. For one, because the English Channel was nothing. That's like 15 or 20 miles. That's not like 150 miles. And also because it was World War II. Guided precision like cruise missile munitions didn't exist. The only thing that the Germans could do to the incoming waves of ships was regular, like, barrel artillery fire out into the sea at them. And then that's that on top of the fact that we already had like destroyed their air force and established complete air superiority. So we were able to to bomb most of the shore stuff into oblivion, anyways. Whereas almost none of that is going to be the case for China going for Taiwan. Taiwan is one of the most heavily uh, dense areas of the planet in terms of layers of anti-air stuff. Like even just one of the different types of like anti-air asset systems they have from us. They have over I forget which one it was, but they have over 500 of them packed onto just that tiny little island. So the amount of anti-air density in Taiwan is like insane. Plus, also there's the fact that China kind of just sucks, and the last time they actually fought against a like country opponent was back in around 1980, and it was a slaughter on their ends. Like the KD ratio of Vietnam against them was insane. And in modern times, their military of comprised of mostly spoiled only children who are the third generation of only children. Uh, the few times they've supposedly or were supposed to see combat, which it was mostly in just peacekeeping missions in places like Sudan or Chad, where they were in armored vehicles, IFVs and AFVs, against guys in pickup trucks with some AK-47s. And still, you can look this up yourself, the Chinese troops abandoned their position and fled the battlefield, even though they were in effectively zero danger and could have just sat in their IFVs and used the auto turret to gun down the terrorists. They still fled. They still fled from combat. And the one like mass exercise that they tried to hold up in Inner Mongolia, they had like hundreds of troops like actually like refusing to participate because the conditions were too cold and were like too harsh, which is it's kind of it's kind of like hysterical that people who like do the pro-Russian, pro-China stuff like constantly say that the U.S. is like the U.S. military is like super weak because it has gay people or something. Yet the U.S. is like super weak military. Somehow still doesn't flee from combat, and also you know our weapon systems actually hit the targets they're intended to. Unlike, someone's precision munitions, ours don't veer 2 miles off course and impact nothing in the middle of a random cornfield in eastern Ukraine. Now, granted, the target it was supposed to hit in that hysterical instance was, of course, in Russian tradition, a hospital. But their stuff is like so crap tier that it couldn't even hit the hospital it was supposed to hit, and instead just hit a random cornfield. And also, uh, their their stuff has ended up shooting itself. And I'm not kidding on this. Some of their ground launched like missile systems. They when they raised the truck, they were trying to fire, and it shot the missile out and the missile, and I think one of these does have an actual video of it. The missile went out and then doubled back and came down and hit the truck, which implies like it implies several things. First off, the crew are so poorly trained and so stupid that they input their own coordinates as the target coordinates. And then two, the engineers who designed the Russian hardware are so stupid that they did not install a brake system, a red flag system that would, stop the missile from launching and like sound an alarm to them that they had input their own coordinates as the target coordinates. So literally both ends of that like insane level of stupidity have to be true for that to have happened because it's happened 3 different times. And also there's the stuff that was supposed to be a stereotype that ended up being true, that I really couldn't believe at first because it was just so brain breaking, when like some of the footage came out of like them just straight up drinking in combat, like actively taking fire, and they were just straight up like just chugging booze. And I was like, that guys, come on, that this is supposed to be a stereotype that we impose on you in Hollywood. This isn't supposed to be true. You're not supposed to actually do it. All right, well, close to an hour. Yeah, so that's probably going to be it for this one, as it's now over 80 degrees in this room. So I'm going to cut it soon, unless anything else or anyone else had anything specific to bring up. Actually, now that I think of it, I think I had something specific to bring up, but I forgot what it was. I should check the demand load one more time at least while we're still on 679 gigawatts as of 3 p.m. Although it is 4:24 now, so come 5, we will find out what the new update for that was. So let's see. Is Josh streaming? No, he's not, because he's in chat. All right, hold up. Let me chug some more water. Uh, I did not copy the maps like I was supposed to in my self-imposed like order to myself to copy. But they're not doing what actually initially thought they were. They are actually attacking from five different vectors. And hold on, let me here. I'll just pull up. I'll always pull up the simple one. Where is it? All right, so yeah, I thought they were going to do the whole single punch thing, come down here and then swing behind. But in reality, they're punching in three different places, and basically, at least here in Zaporizhia, I mean, so in the way it's going is this one is about like 5 kilometers, this one's about 10, this one's about 20 so far at least. So each one further east along the Zaporizhia line out of the three, each one is being pushed like further. The more east you go, each one is pushing further in. So I'm assuming that means they're trying to do a fold around instead of a punch and then L L-shaped run through. And also they're doing a gradual Bakhmut encircling, which I wouldn't, in my personal choice, I wouldn't really focus on, but Bakhmut's kind of become like a symbolic thing, so I can understand why they're doing that. And then, to my utter surprise, actually, they already have crossed the river. Granted, it's not the Dnieper River anymore after the dam collapse, but even in that instance, I still wasn't expecting them to actually do anything across the river. However, they have been gradually uh, establishing a foothold over here, which Russia pathetically has not been able to oust them from, which is kind of odd because that they're in like a really tight zone. You should be able, theoretically, if you were a competent military, Russia, to just rain targeted artillery down on them. Yet somehow you're not doing that. It's almost as if you're not competent. But they're doing that there, which is forcing a somewhat of a redirective force. They've reached the like primary minefield because the main issue with this was going to be the big minefield layer, which was about 20 kilometers from the front line, which is where the furthest east push here now has reached, because that's where Russia set up a set of like anti-vehicle mines. That's the field is like I think 200 to 300 meters wide, basically, or thick. I mean, from where you would cross at one point and then exit beyond it. So clearing that to be able to then proceed into the territory beyond is what's causing the primary issue at the moment. But now Russia's having abrupt supply issues because you may have seen the Kerch Bridge got hit again, despite all of the defensive stuff that they were parking on it. The two road sections of it collapsed. The rail section is still intact, but the two road sections collapsed. And in theory, reconstruction just started today, apparently. And in theory, they would be able to repair that in 3 weeks from the start of reconstruction, which just started today. So, in theory, around like August 15th or so, that would be done. But, you know, it's, I'm going to wait and see because, Ukraine could just destroy it again since they've proven that they can, and that whatever defense Russia keeps packing on it doesn't really do anything. And on top of that, there are four bridges that go from Crimea into mainland Ukraine. There are four, however, two of them are just meant for cars. Like they will buckle if anything more than I think 4 tons comes across them. Only two are able to handle actual heavy loads, like tanks, armored vehicles, military freight trucks, and stuff. Because remember, stuff in that category per vehicle tends to weigh like 40 to 60 tons. So there are only two that can actually handle that. One of which Ukraine caused a partial collapse of, the one over here, I believe. And so that is under repair and in theory should be able to be used again in like the first few days of August. So Russia's having to funnel everything through this one and come around a lawn mess of roads over here. And also everyone, all of the Russians living in Crimea that are trying to get out of Crimea are now having to flee this way over land and constantly see explosions and crap happening around them, which I think is part of the psychological point uh, of of why Ukraine waited until like summer to make this attack on the bridge, because summer is when the most vacationing Russians would have been in Crimea, and now obviously seeing that and all of the recent successful fuel depot attacks by Ukrainian drones, now all of the like tourists want to flee Crimea, and on top of already seeing this and are going through here, are now constantly being surrounded by like explosions and crap as they go through here, which is going to add, more of a mental shock and break the kind of everything is okay, Putin is awesome disconnect, like depoliticized disconnect they were having back home. And so still supplies are, or from supplies that are in Crimea at least, are choked through this point for the moment. And they just hit down here again. I what was it? No, not the airfield. The airfield is here. The airfield got hit last week. I don't know whether it was by Storm Shadow missiles or by drones, but they took out a few like parked helicopters. And down here, because there's Sevastopol down here, or that might be Sevastopol, I forget which. But one of them is Sevastopol, the primary Russian like military port, and they hit the main fuel depot there, where like the marine fuel for their sea vessels is stored. So the vessels were coming over up here to a different part to get to take on marine fuel, and just this morning, Ukraine hit that fuel depot as well. So those fuel tanks are now burning also. So they are gradually starving out the Russian Black Sea fleets of fuel, at least from the Crimea access. They can still go back to Novosibirsk, I think. They can go back to Novosibirsk in the Sea of Azov, I believe it is, to refuel. And I think that's partially the point, is to force them to have to go back there to refuel and then potentially hit those as well, because they've constantly been hitting targets like inside of Russia in Krasnodar and in Rostov. So if they force them to go back there and then hit those fuel depots as well, then the Black Sea Fleet is like kind of screwed, and it can't really do anything other than just like sit there uh, and until the ships like run out of fuel. Although they could do something really dangerous and do a ship to ship transfer, which is not recommended when you have Russia's level of incompetence. And also, Russia doesn't have an auxiliary supply fleet, anyways. So it would be having to transfer fuel from like a regular civilian fuel tanker ship over onto a military vessel, which is again not recommended. But I'm not certain what the exact axis is going to be from this point. I'm assuming the 20-kilometer inward point here because that's the one where they've reached the minefield. I'm assuming that is where things are primarily going to happen, and that's kind of right where I initially assumed the whole punch through and swing behind lines thing was going to happen anyways. But they've reached that minefield, which is really thick. So I would assume they could, instead of using like the traditional mine clearing stuff, I would defer more to just do a like forward wave of like artillery bombardments across the land, because if you just rain explosions on the land, then those will detonate the mines on their own. So I that would kind of potentially be like a more effective clearing method, if you can't if you can't get a time frame where you're not under fire. That is, uh, if you can get a time frame where you're not under fire and use regular like mine clearing stuff, then that would be preferable. But you can also clear a minefield by just like constantly raining artillery fire across it to cause all the mines to detonate. Or since we gave them JDAMs now, they could just have a constantly send in low flying Su-25s and just JDAM the minefield. But yeah, it's looking more like a Kherson approach than a Kharkiv approach. And Russia's stuff is getting worn down pretty readily. In terms of cruise missiles, they started with about 4,000, and since uh, the start of the war, assuming that their factories have been running at like maximum efficiency, which is a big if, they would have been able to produce potentially another 750 by now. So that would be a total net amount of 4,750, and they have expended about 3,450. So, like I said, that leaves about like 1,000 to 1,200 left potentially, that they are, again, as of the last few days, wasting on blowing up grain silos. Like I really don't get it. Like, I mean, someone suggested it's that they're not using strategy anymore and that it's just spite. And I guess it is just spite, but like even still, like you have another 1,000 cruise missiles. You could try hitting actual military targets with them, but apparently not. Whereas uh the thing for Ukraine is they if they're if it's going to be slow, they can still keep going slowly because we're just going to keep funneling them stuff indefinitely because our supply is effectively indefinite, which is the part that like anti-Western people really don't seem to grasp. Uh, who is winning? Ukraine is winning. They've been winning from the moment Russia stalled. I mean, the only way you can turn that around is if you actually believe like the repeated stuff every time like Russia pulls a massive retreat of it was just a feint, or it was we were always going to do that anyways, or it was a gesture of goodwill. But all right, 1 hour and 14 minutes, and it is almost 81 degrees in this room. So I've reached the end. Uh, it's not close enough to get an update yet. What do we? Oh, yeah. If anyone didn't know, that's what lithium extraction from the brine looks like down in Chile and Argentina. All right, I think that's about. I really do feel like I'm forgetting something though, which is really bothering me. Actually, it's not even. I don't even feel like it. I know I'm forgetting something. I don't think it's in prices. Something's. And this is gonna eat me after I shut down. I know the moment I shut down, I'm gonna remember what it was. I don't think it was anything in here. All right, well, uh, I'm not gonna stream myself staring at a screen, desperately trying to think of whatever it was I forgot. So that's gonna be it. And yeah, I don't know if there's going to be like a not hot enough day soon for me to stream again. So I'll try if there is a upcoming day where like the temperature is like providing enough, but I can't guarantee anything. I will I will try to make like resume actual videos again though, since I at least know the air conditioning does not come through on the microphone for the moment at least. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. So thank everybody for being